Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Health Chief Lo Chung-mau denies a rift between him and Chief Executive John Lee over COVID policies. Government reveals plans to criminalize ticket scalping for events held at public venues. And Ukraine and Russia continue to point fingers at each other over the state of the Zaporizhzhia power plant. Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau has slammed a Bloomberg report as misleading and detrimental to the city's COVID fight. The report alleged that Chief Executive John Lee was at odds with Lo on easing COVID rules, including the scrapping of hotel quarantine. Mizi Mok reports.
It all started on Thursday when Bloomberg cited sources as saying that the government was planning to end hotel quarantine in November. While such rumors have been circulating for days, what caused controversy was the report's claim that Chief Executive John Lee was at odds with his cabinet over the plan. It alleged that Lee was leaning towards scrapping hotel quarantine to signal the city is back in business, despite the objections of some in his administration. They included Health Chief Lo Chung-mau, who Bloomberg said wanted to tighten restrictions to create conditions needed to reopen the SAR's border with the mainland. The government neither acknowledged nor denied the allegations that day, only saying it would not lie flat in its COVID battle, a term used by authorities to suggest inaction. The health secretary refused to take the report lying down, however. In a strongly worded article, he questioned the validity of the sources in the report, which he said had tricked readers into believing there was a rift within the government. Risking the media's professional image is one thing, but the report may also affect the government's COVID policies, he said. The surgeon insisted there is no conflict whatsoever within the government, and that the reopening of border to the mainland and overseas is not a zero-sum game. Also giving his take on the COVID development was former Health Minister Wynna. He brushed aside suggestions that the disease is soon becoming endemic like the seasonal flu.
If we are not certain whether this wave will reach a peak and therefore will quiet down later, then I'm of the view that we are not yet in a position to say whether we can further relax the quarantine requirement for the people who have contracted COVID or for people who return from overseas.
He added with daily cases on the rise, now was not the time to ease COVID restrictions. Mizi Mok, HKIBC.
Hong Kong's COVID infections have exceeded 5 digits for the second consecutive day. Only 193 of the 10,683 cases logged today were imported. Another 3 patients and a nurse at Yan Chai Hospital's medical ward have contracted COVID after an 84-year-old patient at the same ward was earlier found positive. Health officials again urged people, especially the elderly, to get vaccinated as soon as possible. They explained the unvaccinated are 56 times more likely to die after an infection compared to those who have received 3 jabs. COVID has taken away the lives of 8 more people aged 59 to 102. 4 of them were care home residents. There might be good news for those who struggle to snap up concert tickets. The government announced it is looking into plugging a loophole which allows scalpers to profit on concerts held at public venues. Janice Lo reports.
In a first for Hong Kong, popular boy band Mira required fans who purchased their concert tickets to register with their real names. While the move was aimed at weeding out scalpers, tickets for the shows were still touted online for thousands of dollars. With the sizable profit margin, scalpers employ a range of techniques to snatch up tickets before selling them for a hefty markup. Some paid mules to line up at ticket counters days in advance, while others who were more tech-savvy used computer hacks to get around queues online. but their days may be numbered. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung revealed that the government plans to criminalize the practice. While scalping is already illegal in Hong Kong, the law only applies to events held at private venues. That means concerts held at the Hong Kong Coliseum are not bound by the rule. But Yeung admitted the idea is only a preliminary one and was unable to provide a concrete timetable. Regarding the accident at the Mirror concert, which left a dancer critically injured, the culture minister said investigators needed more time before they can publish their findings. Apart from finding out how and why the giant screen fell onto the stage, authorities are also studying measures to improve safety and prevent future accidents. He added it will be up to the police to find out whether there are criminal elements involved, a process he said could take some time. In his weekly update, the father of the injured dancer, Mo Lee, said there is only a 5% chance that his son will make a full recovery. Pastor Derek Lee added the team of doctors will try acupuncture next week to treat his paralyzed son. Janice Lo, HKIBC.
A motorcyclist was seriously injured after a head-on collision in Sheko. Dashcam footage showed the 25-year-old woman losing control at a bend near Cape d'Aguilar Road. She veered into the opposite lane and rammed into a Lamborghini sports car. Her motorbike was carrying a learner's plate. She was thrown into the air and suffered multiple injuries, but remained conscious as she was rushed to Eastern Hospital. The Lamborghini driver also sustained minor leg injuries. Turning overseas, Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant is currently hanging by a thread, according to the United Nations nuclear watchdog. Ukraine and Russia are blaming each other for knocking Europe's largest power plant off the grid once again. As Ukraine suffers its 7th month of invasion, there are renewed fears that a nuclear disaster is looming at the Zaporizhzhia power plant. There were hopes the arrival of a group of United Nations inspectors would help reduce those risks, but that was dashed when the International Atomic Energy Agency announced in a statement yesterday that the plant had lost connection with its last remaining primary external power line after prolonged shelling in the area. The plant is now relying on a lower voltage backup line to power its cooling equipment and keep itself from melting down. Still, IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi, who led the UN delegation that arrived on Thursday, said their presence was a game changer in receiving fast and reliable information about the plant. Zaporizhzhia is Ukraine and Europe's largest nuclear facility and has been a point of conflict in the war since Russian forces took control in March, although the plant is still largely operated by Ukrainian workers. Russian Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov blamed the cutoff on Kyiv for trying to seize Zaporizhzhia on Friday. It doesn't make sense for Ukraine to shell it, said this displaced resident of Nikopol, a city just northwest of the plant. The authorities know what happened to Chernobyl, and nobody would even think about doing that, she said. All this coincides with an announcement by Russian energy provider Gazprom, which said it would not resume gas supplies into Europe. In a video address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Moscow is preparing for a decisive energy strike on all Europeans this winter. Former U.S. leader Donald Trump has branded current President Joe Biden an enemy of the state, following Biden's national address on Thursday. Trump was speaking to his followers at a rally weeks after the FBI raided his Mar-a-Lago residence.
The shameful raid and break-in of my home, Mar-a-Lago, was a travesty of justice that made a mockery of America's laws, traditions, and principles before the entire world was watching, and they're shocked. The Biden administration invaded the home of their chief political opponent, who is absolutely destroying him and everyone else in the polls. I hate to say it.
A look at the weather before we go. Staying fine and dry tomorrow with temperatures between 28 and 34 degrees. But expect thunderstorms midweek. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Thanks for watching. Good night.